Steve and I did a little diving in Southeast Alaska this year, and life in coastal Alaska anyway, between the birds and the seals and the whales and the bears. And then you go below the surface and it is just shockingly beautiful. And there's so much life everywhere.
All right, what is up, everybody? We are joined today by Mr. Ryan Callahan, a big part of the team over at MeatEater, host of Cal's Weekend Review podcast, frequent guest host. I don't know, it's your guys' thing. You're always on the show, the TV show MeatEater. You can check that out on Netflix. I think I know you just dropped a season this last September, brand new episodes. Really enjoying those, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So, Cal, welcome. We're gonna play a little 20 questions with Cal today. We're gonna get in the mind of a Cal. These are hard hitting questions. I mean, this is some real reporting, folks. But before we do that, Cal, what's going on, man? Let's wrap a little bit. What have you been up to?
Ooh, so I just did a lap out to North Dakota for birds, and it was fun. We got out there, we scouted, we got some landowner permissions, we ran the river, and ended up being there while North Dakota got 3.5 inches of rain, which was just brutal. But we got some good shoots out of it. I felt it was just like one of those, like, we were kind of like there that day instead of being like, oh, you guys should have been here last week. And I was talking to some folks actually with Delta Waterfowl, and they're like, well, how was it? I said, I shot my first speckled belly goose, shot a couple of them. Wow. That was really cool. And I shot cranes. We got cranes one day. Sandhills, which is something I've always wanted to do. That's an amazing conservation success story amongst a lot of amazing migratory bird conservation success stories. And this guy for Delta Waterfowl is like, it's like, I've lived here for 22 years and I've always wanted to do that, and I've never got either of those.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah.
Man, that is a big week. 3.5 inches of rain. I mean, that's putting the water in waterfowl.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. And, it's drought cycle out here in the West. The prairie pothole region, which, we're basically like square in the center of in North Dakota. It's like one of those times where people are like, well, I thought wetlands are supposed to be wet, and all these potholes are dry. And then they got a little bit of rain to us prior to us showing up. And then that deluge, and you could just literally see the water marching up to the kind of historic water lines in these potholes. And it was just a great visual representation of how those wetland ecosystems work, So they got to dry out from time to time in order for new life to begin when the rains show up. So,
dude, that's super cool. I was hunting South Dakota. I did a quick bomb run out there in must have been, was it early September, late August, early September, I don't know, to chase antelope with my bow. And I'd hike into all these spots. I'd be on my Onyx. I'm like, oh, there should be some water here, water there. Like, wrong. Like, I hiked into a lot of spots that, on the map it said water, but there was no water to be found. So I would imagine that some of that stuff is filled up as well if they caught some of that storm. But
definitely, and I had swung up outside of Jordan, Montana, on my way home from North Dakota, and kind of that Badlands system out there. You could see the grass was hit real hard over the drought, like very, very low browse for anything. And basically like the only water out there was in like the man-made features, the improved water catches, stuff like that. But those are catching water now too. So they got about 10 inches of snow out there. That's now gone, of course. But it's just nice. Like there's more life out there than you thought there was going to be after a really brutal summer. So
yeah, man, like so cool and so needed. You know, I know when I lived in Nebraska for like 7 years, and Lake McConaughey is kind of like, I guess, I don't know, you call it like an impoundment or something on in western Nebraska. But you know, there's a dam, and the North Platte flows into it. And that thing was like super down when I lived there. Like I would hunt, like I was hunting turkeys, like pretty far back in, or, you know, relatively whatever, like a decent little hike back in. And we were into birds, and I found like a landing net, you know, like where at some point it had fallen out of somebody's boat. And I remember thinking, dude, this thing's never going to come back. It's never going to come back. And then like 1 year, like boom, it was like full again. I don't know where it's at right now, but it's wild how that can really fluctuate and also change and turn around in a hurry.
Oh yeah, and again, it's such a good barometer, good perspective for, you know, people who are out on the landscape all the time to see these places at the high highs and low lows, and have that perspective. Because again, like, you know, you start talking wetlands, and there's a lot of people out there who are like, it's in the name, they're wet. It's like, well, actually, in order for them to do what they're supposed to do, they got to dry out from time to time. I was just talking with the farmer buddy of mine in South Dakota yesterday who, you know, I was on his place just for a little bit last year, and he's like, all those sloughs that we were looking at, he's like, at the end of last year, I was looking at them, and I was like, it is going to take years for these things to be dry. And basically by that June, this past June, they were all bone dry. And he's like, I couldn't fathom where the water went. And they had long, dry summer, real dismal, pushing their pastures harder than they want to. And these are like very wildlife minded folks as well. And he's like, it was just tough. And then we got a little bit of rain in September, and we got this super fast green grass explosion. All the pheasants ended up having a bonus clutch. And right now we're seeing like they just had their opening week of pheasants, and he's like, we were seeing like 8-week-old pheasants. It's like there's a lot of birds that got up where you're like, oh, it's trying to be a rooster. It just doesn't have the feathers yet, you know. So it's great to see that response, and it's kind of a cautionary tale too. Like I think myself included, like on the bird side of things, there's a lot of species that need a little bit of a break this year. So maybe you got to be a little more mindful of where your freezer's at, and maybe not go for a limit every day. But get the dog some exercise, pick one good shot, and call it a day. Because if this winter is particularly harsh, then we could see that real population effect for next season, you know?
Yeah. Like you said, pretty darn, well, I don't know, it seems early to me. Like that was like a big snowstorm that went through kind of like the west there for a few days. I mean, that was, how many, like, I was hearing, I can't remember how many, like I was hearing like 20 inches. I mean, is that even accurate?
Oh yeah. And I mean, you got to keep in mind too, like that same basic time of year 2 years ago is where that, you know, the whole like Devil's Lake got 3 feet of snow in North Dakota, right? So it's wildly boom and bust, and it's gone now. And we had somewhere around 10 inches here in Bozeman. I know, like my uncle's rancher out of Big Timber, they had 10 inches of snow at his place up on the High Line. When I was coming back on Sunday, there was still some snow on the ground, different parts of Montana. So the mountains are holding on to it, which is great. So
yeah, that is good. The getting back to the cranes, I didn't even realize that North Dakota had a crane season. Do you know how long they've had that for?
That's a great question. I'm not entirely sure when their first season was. I know here in Montana, it was like a stop the car type of an event when I was a kid to see cranes out in the field. Certainly in more than like 2 or 4 or 6. And like historically, we got the kind of western Mississippi crane down to as low as or lower than about 1,000 individuals, and now we're up over the 100,000 individual mark. The lesser over 400,000, and it's a tremendous comeback. I'd always say it's hard to keep in mind that these great comeback stories are because of really terrible stories of, not being very good conservationists, right? Letting things get away from us. But we got this great comeback with the cranes, and now we are seeing, I think Minnesota is considering a season right now. So they're a really cool bird. The ones that we're hunting right now have been in the fossil record for over 2.5 million years, possibly as long as 10 million years. Like they are, if you want to call something a dinosaur, I'm fine with you slapping that moniker on a sandhill crane. They're incredibly cool birds, and we are seeing them in some really significant numbers. And for, conservation takes a long time to talk about, but this is like an in my lifetime thing. And now you can get an over-the-counter crane permit in eastern Montana. And it's not, it used to be like a draw, like as serious as a big game draw for moose, goat, or sheep here in Montana to draw a crane permit. So it's really cool, and they're just like very tasty birds. Like you know why hunting was a factor, because like the ones that we got, they weren't like super fatty, didn't really want to pluck them and make them look nice. So we just breasted them out and pulled the legs and the thighs, and the breast meat is very, very good. I made like some type of dish that you'd make with like a veal, and it was incredible. And then I did confit with the crane legs and thighs. And I'll tell you, like if you were to break a crane leg and decide right then and there on whether or not it was edible, 9 people out of 10 would say no. Like the ligaments, the tendons and ligaments in that leg are like cable. They're like wire, and there's a lot of them. And it is astonishing. You're like, you can't get a tooth through there. But once you slow cook them, everything pulls right out, and the meat in those legs is fantastic. And it's a lighter meat, which is pretty wild.
Well, and they're a pretty leggy bird.
Oh, there's a lot of leg.
That is super.
A lot of leg.
Is it like, so I've always wanted to hunt sandhills, and for a long time it was like, seemed like, I don't know, I was aware of like, Texas, Colorado had a season. I mean, we had big numbers of them when I lived in Nebraska, particularly in the spring, but there wasn't a season there. But it's really cool to see kind of some more of these seasons opening up as the resource, can handle it, and people getting into that. For the last few years, I've heard rumblings in Wisconsin, like, there's talk. So far, all I'm aware of it is talk that we may get a season here at some point eventually, and hopefully we do. And hopefully it just gets, more people, I guess, aware of the birds, caring about the birds, excited to learn about the birds. And kind of like what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, and even just like a revenue generator for, conservation. Like if they said, if you want to buy a crane tag, that's going to be $50, I'd pay $50. I'll let the DNR know that right now. I'd pay $50 to shoot one crane, maybe more.
Oh, I love it. They just as I think you're nail on the head there as far as like an awareness thing. Like to having a season will drive awareness of the bird, and hopefully we do a good enough job to say, these are the type of habitats these birds like. This is where we were with the population. This is where we're at now. And hunting is considered still a threat to the species overall. But I believe that is, when you consider hunting as like an unregulated sort of threat versus a regulated management tool. So, as I think most folks are aware, whether you like it or not, if we can hunt something, we typically figure out a way to keep that thing healthy and on this planet, so.
Well, and so many other things benefit from that, right? Like you might be super into deer or elk or grouse, and so maybe you join the RMEF or the Rough Grouse Society or whatever, and that's kind of like where your passion lies. But so many other species benefit from the work that gets done, in those habitats or whatever. So yeah,
absolutely. Songbirds, pollinators, everything's got so much overlap. And one big piece of legislation that's coming down the pipe right now is the Recovering America's Grasslands Act, and that one is wildly beneficial to waterfowl. So if you're a duck hunter, think of how many species nest in grasslands, and that's just like not, it's like waterfowl. It's in the name, is they're water birds, right? So that's just a good example. Grasslands, obviously, antelope, deer, the things that you think about, but those cranes too. Those cranes spend a lot of time roaming through the fields, picking up a little bit of grain here and there, but also mice, frogs, salamanders, all sorts of cool stuff. So tons of overlap in these ecosystems. And, certainly from my hunting perspective, I would encourage everyone to be invested in saving them all. So
I like it. Yeah, you talked about the cranes eating like mice and stuff. We had some cranes that I was watching that were by our house, and I watched one like pick up and essentially swallow like this large vole type creature, and I was like, man, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, man, you go pick one up and you really look at the head and face and gullet on those things, and they're pretty mean machine.
They are, and they look awesome, and they're super cool, and apparently, which I have not experienced firsthand, delicious. Speaking of meat, not the meat of sandhill cranes, but we're going to get into the meat of this podcast. Maybe the meat eater of this podcast, Ryan. 20 questions, and we're going to cap this off. I'm going to tease this at the very end. We're going to do a quick overrated, underrated, accurately rated. So we'll give you a few things, and I think those will be. I think that'll be fun, and it was also a way for me to cram like a bunch more questions since I had more than 20 into like one question and count it as one question. So, first things first. Question one, topic one, Cal. I think we need to address the mustache in the room here. So, ever since I've known you, it's a Cal staple. It's iconic Cal. I mean, I think if you asked a lot of people to be like, oh, like give me one defining characteristic of Cal, there'd be a lot of really good ones. Like, you'd be like, oh, he's super smart. He loves to excellent hunter and fisherman, just consummate outdoorsman, good looking, smells nice.
You're too good to me, Mark.
But they'd probably say the mustache, which actually forever, if I saw that mustache, like if I was at the airport, I'd be like, oh, sweet, there's Cal. But nowadays, that's not the case because it's like it's part of the outdoorsman's uniform. Like you single-handedly started a mustache trend that is going very strong. But so let's go back in time. Like you're like the first. You're the OG of the mustache in modern times.
There's probably a lot of old tobacco-stained mustaches prior to me I'm happy to be a part of that clique, but I'm not going to claim that I'm the start of the trend. My deal with the mustache, like plain and simple, is as long as I can remember, forever, I've always wanted like the big, bushy mountain man beard, and I just could never grow one, nor can I grow one now. And the only thing that I can successfully, crop is the mustache. So it used to be something that would come and go, and secretly, like people would be like, "Oh, I bet you whatever that you wouldn't wear a mustache for a month or whatever," and I'd take that bet every time. Now I kind of joke and say it's like my get out of jail free card, where as soon as I'm done getting a little bit of spotlight, I'm just going to shave it off and be persona non grata again. But I like it. I ingest a little bit too much of it from here and there, but.
Well, I'll tell you this. I like it as well, and a lot of other people like it as well because I see a lot of damn mustaches out there in the world today. And even though you won't take credit because of your modesty, I'm still giving you the credit. So, bam, you got it there. So I always find these stories interesting. Question 2, by the way. I'll keep these numbered. How did you get into hunting and fishing? Like, I mean, you're, like I said, consummate outdoorsman, one of the most knowledgeable people that I know in the space. How'd you get your start?
My folks, my mom and my dad, my mom, she and her mother have always loved to fish. And that was just like a good, fun, inexpensive way to entertain me. And, I'd be like going catching grasshoppers first and then going fishing later. And I was obsessive with it. So I got to thank Mom for that. And she is still honestly like slightly annoying to be around when fishing comes up. Like she is, just over the top. And will not stop. So thank you, Mother, for that. And then had a great mentor, like next door neighbor, who saw my obsession with like outdoors type things and offered to take me out for little hunting and fishing excursions, and that was huge. And then my dad was. And still is like organized athletics guy. Anything like school sports, like he is Mr. College football still, but really was the consummate like football coach, and was able to be like, all right, I see that you. Despite all of my fanaticism about organized athletics, you kind of put up with that, but what you really want to do is this. And he caved. He would take me out, and go well beyond his expertise to make sure that I got out. And then eventually he hooked me up with the first outfitter that I would eventually ever work for. And I latched onto that guy, and that guy had the patience of Job. And I asked him, every single question that I had packed in my brain from like 12 years of reading Field and Stream and Outdoor Life. That was like my yearly birthday present from my mom, was a subscription to those magazines. And, I never had anybody to ask the questions that I had. And so I just uncorked on this salty old outfitter. And, little did he know we were going to be best friends from there on out. And that was that. So just spent a lot of time in camps before I was working in them, and then eventually started working in them. So
I like it, man. That's awesome. Question 3. So, I think if you're outside, if you're in the outdoors, if you're hunting, I think there's definitely oftentimes a high level of adventure, and situations can get a little bit hairy at times. You got a scariest hunting moment?
I think that it's possible that my attitude is such that I don't register a lot of real scary moments. I'm kind of like a never say die type of person. I'm always like, well, I can figure that out.
Yeah, I block them out too, Cal.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, well, it wasn't that bad. I can figure that out. But, we've had some instances, like looking back, where it was like that, that really wasn't that smart. Because if this, like, one more thing would have happened, then we would have had to do this, and the chances of everybody coming out of that situation with all their fingers and toes, not good, right? So, have had a few. That's really the ones that like stick out the most. I've been charged by grizzly bears a handful of times at this point, and have always like really been analytical of those moments, because I believe that most of those situations are preventable. And I was like, well, God, why was I not smart enough to see this coming? And so something I'm trying to get better at. But, maybe it's cockiness or something, but I'm always like, even when they're real close, I'm like, I could figure that out. I still had time. And then like cold, I love late season hunting, having camp on my back, sleeping in the snow, and being out there where it's just cold, and it's a different experience. And there's always reminders of, why you really do need to move slow and be methodical about things, and pick your routes carefully. And doesn't matter how big the buck or the bull is, you got to plan ahead and be smart, because you can just get in situations that can turn bad really quickly. And once you get real cold, you get cold, in my opinion, at a rate much faster than you can reheat once you hit a certain deficit level. So, and you're just like, you're burning gas in the tank. And I just think it's a fascinating and challenging environment to put yourself in. And I look forward to it every year. But there's always some instances where it's like, ooh, could I have built a fire in that condition? Like, could I have walked myself into warmth in that condition type of deal? So,
yeah, that's tricky, man. An early September, backpack hunt is definitely different than a November, December type backpack hunt. What are there any honestly, to the point where that's like you said, there's definitely some risk factors involved. There is in everything we do, right? You could get hit by a bus tomorrow. But are there some gear considerations that you're making there? Like how are you essentially surviving out there? Because it's not easy that time of year.
Yeah, I just tend to carry a decent amount of camp on my back, no matter what. So like when the temperatures drop, I have a couple of different ways of making fire, which like one thing is like I'm almost never without my backpacking stove at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I plan on like I like a cup of coffee in the morning, a cup of coffee at noon, and so I kind of go in excess on the fuel level, and I always have enough in reserve for a situation of everything's gone terribly wrong, and I need to start a fire with my camp stove. And then in addition to that, I'm always picking up pieces of pitch wood or looking at different means and methods kind of throughout the year and assembling little kits in like old ibuprofen bottles and stuff like that. And just being familiar with how to use that stuff. So like every time I start a campfire, I'm trying out something else under very relaxed conditions. And just kind of like keeping up with that skill and keeping notes of like, oh boy, this is a 65-degree night in September in my buddy's antelope camp. And it took me 25 minutes to start this fire using this thing that I put together that I thought would be great. That's probably not going to be my go-to when it's -17 somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just always practicing, I think is a great takeaway for folks listening. Like I do it all the time, and sometimes I refine things that worked great and I just put away for no real good reason, trying to find something better. And yeah, I really do try to limit the amount of extras. So I don't I'm not going to have like a whole nother set of long johns or, more than 2 pairs of socks for 10 days, as nasty as that sounds. But I have like plenty of insulation, like lightweight insulation, and like I said, extra fuel and a good first aid kit. So, and really like I love these long extended hunts with camp on my back. And last year I shot a buck right at the end of the trip and started packing that buck up to a ridge that I knew I could get it out on the next day. And while I was doing that, this big storm was building up, and then it was dark and it was just a whiteout snowstorm. And I was very comfortable temperature wise, but now it's like 20 to 30 mile an hour winds and driving snow, and your headlamp is just reflecting snow, and walking on this ridge that I know is the ridge, and I'm walking and walking and walking, and I've got the buck hung up in a tree for tomorrow, and eventually I'm like, boy, I've been moving for a long time, and I should be, at these little landmarks at this point, and this is a brand new area, so these are all brand new landmarks, but you make these places, right? That's like part of your survival strategy. It's part of like making an area familiar to you, right? Wherever you go, it's like, oh yeah, that building right there is the one that, and so, finally, like I dig out my phone, and on accident, and I download all the maps prior, and I keep the stuff on me, but I just don't like looking at it all the time. And then I always have this like survivalist mentality of like, God, don't burn the battery out. You're going to need that, right? And look on the map, and it turns out that I was more or less in the right spot. I was just on like a real wide part of the ridge, and I was just like a lot further from the tent than I thought I was. But it was so, again, the snow was so reflective, it was so dark that I really did have to use that phone my whole way back to the tent, like literally the whole way back until I could pick up the little like bits of reflective P cord in my headlamp. And it was just a really good reminder that I could have, it wasn't part of my plan to use my phone and Onyx to get home, but it became like a necessary thing to get home. And it was a good reminder that why wasn't this part of your plan? Like you should have hung the buck up in a tree closer to where you got it. And then your plan of not using your phone to get home would have still been a good plan. And it sounds like a goofy thing, but you have to take note of all these, in my mind, like mess ups, right? It's like, okay, well, why wasn't that part of your plan? Or, it's like, what if you had been using your phone all day and you were going to be out of battery, and would you have shot that deer? Type of things. Like, it's just all that stuff. And then you crawl in the tent, you got a big fire, and you get to recap the story of what the hell took you so long to your buddies in there, and it dry out a little bit, dry the frozen sweat off of you, and everything's hunky dory. So, but it's just like keeping tabs on that stuff is, I think, really important.
Yeah, no, I mean having a good mapping program like Onyx has literally changed. Like really, it's changed the way that I hunt. It's changed the way that I can hunt. It's like extended my, you don't want to like fully depend on that technology. Like if you lose your phone or whatever, like, so I'm, personally, like I build in some redundancies. I've probably said this before to you. I was born without a sense of direction. It's just a limitation that I have. So I probably overly depend on those things. But man, being able to be confident that you're going to find your way in or out of a place is a pretty big deal. And like you said, you're in a snowstorm like that. Like that could have been a unit or an area potentially that you'd hunted 100 times, but snowstorm like that, I mean, it's get disoriented, or even, you get in thick forest, that can be easy to get disoriented there. And, you're not, all of a sudden if you don't have the ability to check, you might find yourself going in the wrong direction. So that's
Absolutely.
That's a big one. That's a big one. I like that. We talked. Well, I was trying to get your scariest hunting moment there, but apparently, you're just numb to grizzly charges and such. So I couldn't quite pull that out of you. Do you have a most in contrast?
Hey, this moose hunt. A buddy of mine drew a great moose tag, and we threw a new mule into the pack string. Her name's Dottie, and my buddy Kyler, his daughter calls her Pumpkin Pie, which I think is a great name too.
That's a great
But it's kind of always been my responsibility to jump on the new stock and see how it goes. A trial by fire. And Dottie's awesome. She's got a great set of skills, and we got to work on a few things. And she doesn't like trails that drop off into creeks, even small ones, and she gets real skittish. got to get a little psychological with her and see what happened in her past and walk her through a bunch of that stuff. But we're cutting our way through this really old trail, and so there's lots of stobs sticking out, like busted ends of down trees, and we were going through this section of trail that looked relatively clear. Dottie freaked out over the creek in a spot that seemed very, very insignificant. She sidestepped hard, and I took one of those stobs to the stomach, and she was driving hard forward, and it just seemed like one of those things where I was kind of like locked into the saddle. I couldn't really fall off because I would fall a long way. You know, I'm feeling old and feeling like I'd break myself with a long fall off a tall mule, and I just like barely got that chunk of wood off my gut, and felt like I was in danger of getting pierced, or my head cracked open from a long fall. But that'd be like the most recent scary thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is scary. That's a good one, you know, and that's just one of those things like off the top of your head, you think, oh yeah, grizzly charge or, you know, whatever. And that's not, I mean, I know like stock can be dangerous, right? But like, that's also one of those things where you're like, huh, of all the things, like I didn't picture this be happening right now, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there's all those little things that, like, you talk to game wardens and first responders, and they see lots of gnarly stuff, and very seldom is it the big iconic grizzly charge that is doing people in.
Yep, for sure. Golly, man, that is wild. Well, I'm glad you're okay. Great to hear. All right, Ryan. So in contrast to the scariest hunting moment that you may have had, what is you got a most fun or most memorable or something recent that really stands out?
Yeah, just like a quick recent one, that same moose hunt. I guess I really should say, like, you need to, every time you get a chance to go out with your friends and hang out for any amount of time, like you got to take stock of that. That's always a special deal and very fun. But I have this Can-Am side by side. It doesn't have defrost, because I like to rough it. And but the front windshield, you can open, and it's like open all the way, right? And so it's a real frosty morning. We're all bundled up with tons of clothes for the wind chill. I got the windscreen open so it's not frosted up. We're driving down the road, trying to get up to the spot to glass for moose. And I see this bird take off from the side of the road that must have been nesting on the side of the road. And, I'm about to be like, whoa, did you see that? Because I thought we missed it. Like, I hit the brakes and I thought we missed the bird. And my buddy Kyler goes, something hit me in the chest. And I was like, concerned. And I don't like to harm or kill things that I'm not going to eat. And so I stopped, and we got our headlamps on, and I didn't stop. I'm still driving down the road, just much slower. And he opens his armpit, and out of his big puffy jacket flies the bird just straight back out the windshield, and seemed to be totally fine. And all I could think was that bird was like, so I got hit by a car today. And it was a totally different experience than you'd think.
Exactly. Like, really, the irony there, in a way, is that he was saved by the sacrifices of all of his feathered friends.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, exactly. Big puffy down jacket saves bird.
I like it. I just, yeah, that's like one of those bizarre, like, yeah. Again, the things you don't expect. You don't expect to be impaled when you're, riding a mule, and you don't expect to get hit by a bird.
Yes.
I like it. What about with the show? Is there like a behind the scenes most awkward MeatEater moment that you're like, man, like that was just like a little bit weird, man.
Well, Mark, I mean, you've seen it, right? It's like playing 20 questions with dirt in the fish shack in Southeast Alaska. Like, there's
He
going
is
to
a
be some funny.
fascinating individual. I love that guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's running the camera chasing like drug traffickers right now or something. Yeah, boy, it's hard to have anything that sticks out at this point. That's a real bummer. I got to think about that one.
Well, I don't, if you're as awkward as I am as a human being, awkwardness is just normal. So that's just your reality. You live in a state of awkwardness. So that's my life. Um,
Oh, exactly.
what about switching gears here? And you like to fish. You're an angler. Do you have a favorite fish to fish for? And how do you like to fish for it?
I really enjoy anything that's kind of challenging, like running around out here trying to ice angle for perch. I get a lot of enjoyment out of because I've never really stuck them good. Like get two or three and be like, oh my God, I found the spot finally. And then just never have really smashed them.
So
So
even
I do get a lot of
e-
enjoyment out of that.
even when you're fishing, it's the hunt that you're attracted to. Then the hunt for big perch.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. And I absolutely love spear fishing. And I've been trying to dive as much as possible. And it just brings like a lot more challenges. I mean, very, very, very similar to the exact same as like starting to learn how to hunt on land, where you got to figure out the gear and you're super awkward and the terrain. And it's a wonderful challenge. And Steve and I did a little diving in Southeast Alaska this year, and it like there is so much life in coastal Alaska anyway, between the birds and the seals and the whales and the bears. And then you go below the surface and it is just shockingly beautiful. And there's so much life everywhere. And those tide changes happen and everything comes even more alive. Like all the anemones are waving in the current and lots of different colors. And man, like diving for crabs, diving for scallops, spearing fish. It's incredible. I mean, it's weird to just kind of like be more immersed in life, I guess. And that's been just a really, really incredible, extra hobby that I don't need.
Right? I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, a whole new world, right? I've done very little, snorkeling or free diving, like not even in my pinky nail can I, talk about it really. Like I tried actually up in Southeast this last spring, and I think I just like I did it in more like bay areas or whatever. Um, and like when I went, like the clarity was an issue, like that was a little tricky, and I just wasn't seeing like a lot of the stuff that you're describing, which actually makes me want to go back more and maybe like do it right or different the next time and try and figure it out, because I did not figure it out at all. I spent like, I don't know, like probably close to 3 hours in the water, but and then yeah, just trying to like dive down, clear your ears, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
when you were up there, were you doing it like free dive style, or did you guys scuba, or how were you guys doing that?
Yeah, just all free diving. and there's so much to do, and the fish shack is its own beast, keeping that thing and the operations all running. That really what kicked it off is old Chester Floyd and I were out picking and setting crab pots, and I somehow sucked Ranella's fish finder and sonar set up right off the back of the boat.
I shouldn't laugh.
And kind of marked her on the phone and got some landmarks. And then the next day we arrived back on the spot, and I had all my diving gear and dove back down there and recovered it. So
you got it.
I did. It was just bizarre because everything changes so fast up there. It was crystal clear. Like, I couldn't believe that I couldn't see the thing from the boat. Half tempted to just go naked and go for it.
Right.
Well, the next day it was like soup and you couldn't see at all. Then I jumped in. I told Chester, I'm like, man, this is a lost cause, but it's like right in this area. And very first dive, like, I hit the bottom. I'm like, this is pointless. I look left, I look right, and I'm like, oh yeah, but there it is.
Unbelievable. And when you recovered it, like, still working order, like all the buttons were good?
The buttons were great. The screen smoked and acted as if it was going to catch on fire. If that's what it's supposed to do, then yes.
It sounds like it's working fine to me. Yeah. I wouldn't worry about that at all. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, like you said, man, that underwater world is something else, and something that, man, I'm personally looking forward to exploring a little bit more. Speaking of fishing, and this is personal opinion, I like to fly fish. I think you like to fly fish, but would you say is strike indicator just a fancy word for a bobber? Yeah,
absolutely. I think bobber's a great word on its own. So, but to each their own. No judgment. But I'd be absolutely lying if I didn't say that I've referred to it as a bobber in certain circles, because I knew that was an abrasive term.
Just intentionally rubbing people the wrong way. I feel like it's funny. Like, I've seen that, like, in the fly fishing world, and actually just because that's what I grew up calling it, because that's what it's called. Like, I still call it a strike indicator, but it is a bobber. And then when I had float fish, for steelhead, things like that, I still call that float fishing, because I feel like it's somehow it's got a little bit more, I guess, prestige, because or
more reference to what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe not prestige, but yeah, like, it's like more of a descriptor, because when I think of bobber, I'm like red and white worms, which, like float fishing or fly fishing with a strike indicator, like there definitely is some, technicality to it. There's definitely a more, technical style of fishing. I had a buddy of mine, and he's like, I only fly fish. I've probably mentioned this story before. He's like, oh, I'm a fly fisherman. All I do is fly fish. Like, look, and he did look down on other styles of fishing, Cal. And he'd be like, oh, you use bait? I'm like, yeah, I'm drift fishing for steelhead. It's like really technical, like hard fishing. And all the fly fishing that he ever did was he would fish chironomids under a strike indicator in stillwater fishing. And I'm like, anyway, I obviously
right.
I still have a problem with that to this day.
You're like, in a way, you could call your chironomids the bait.
Right. Yeah. It's all. It's. I guess. It's all depends on how you want to look at it. What about you're a cook? You hunt a lot, take a lot of wild game. Do you have a favorite wild game to eat? And then what is, like, if you could pick, like, your number one preferred way to pair it, what is to prepare it? What is that? What's that dish?
It really is, like,
something that I haven't tried in a while, like going back to an old recipe or something like that, and be like, oh my God, this is so good. Because we all get kind of stuck in ruts, like the thing that, you can make quick, or the thing that everybody likes, or, whatever. Like my guilty pleasure meal is like eating a whole super fatty duck by myself. Like every time, like that's the thing that I'm like, oh, you know what I'm going to do tonight?
And there's nobody here to stop me.
Exactly. And nobody's looking. And yeah, man, just like, cook super hot, medium rare on the grill, let it rest a little bit. And man, it is just a killer.
And is that just like, is that like a salt and pepper program, or like it's just the whole plucked duck on the grill with what are you adding anything to it, or doing anything special there, or just traditional?
Yeah, like that salt, fat, fire is all you really need for a duck with a good layer of fat on it. Like, late season birds, when they've switched off of invertebrates and they're really on seeds and grains, or more plant matter, and they're putting on a heavier coat of fat, is just a phenomenal eating bird. And I will score the fat in like the really fatty places to help some of that render out. Rub the thing down with salt, pepper. If you have a favorite like spice blend, that's great. And yeah, just like get that thing on a super hot grill. I start out skin side down, and then I go meat side down, and then I might flip it back to the skin side for a minute. But it's a pretty darn quick process, and then let it rest and hang out for a minute, and then like I really don't mess around with like duck, doing any duck sauces and stuff like that. I'm never like disappointed when there's a sauce with duck or something like that, but when it's just me at home, it's just a step too much. It's unnecessary.
Exactly. So, hey, simple is good, man. I've been called a simpleton at times. I don't know what that really means, but no, that sounds good. Does it turn out kind of like? Is it almost like just like a rare steak then? Like almost
exactly
like a rare beef steak? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like that whole like ribeye of the sky thing that a lot of people try to reserve for crane. I think it's probably more appropriate for duck because you're getting so much more fat. And the reality is, like, occasionally, like if I tried 3 times in the fall to make a goose breast exactly like a steak, one out of the 3 is like exactly like a steak. The difference is like, for whatever reason, like 2 of the 3 are just tough. Like the flavor's good, it tastes good, it looks good. It's just tough. And it really bothers me that I can't figure out how to do that more consistently. And I've done it, in the sous vide and have tried some brines and stuff like that. But like right now I have some big Canada goose breasts in a brine to make like corned goose breast.
Oh, nice.
And I love sandwiches. So sandwiches and charcuterie, always a crowd pleaser. So that's what those will turn into.
Absolutely, man. That sounds awesome. We're talking a little bit about bird hunting, and a big part of bird hunting can be dogs. Now, the last time we had you on the podcast, Cal, you had it's always a pleasure, by the way, you just gotten a pooch. Number one, you hadn't named the dog yet. So have you named your dog? And then a follow-up question, and I think you might have experience with this. Now, I'm not asking you to be a veterinarian, but do you have a number one tip if your dog gets bit by a snake?
So the dog's name is Snort, and she's just fantastic. And she did get bitten by a rattlesnake this year, and that was horrifying. And she reacted really severely, but then consequently had really incredible fast turnaround recovery. And so she really exceeded expectations on both ends of the thing.
She's like a honey badger.
Oh God, it's wild, man. It is wild. And I'm a animal sissy, and the dog is spoiled, would be the easy way to put it. But so what I would tell people is, especially like, unless you are a vet, there's not a whole lot you can do when transporting your dog to care. Like for a snake bite victim of any species, what you want to do is keep them calm, comfortable, relaxed heart rate, and that's just not going to promote the flow of the venom and the toxins within the venom throughout the body. It's going to keep it more localized, and ideally what you're going to deal with is pain, and then some dead tissue around the bite itself. But one thing that you can do is Benadryl for your pet, and you can get technical and ask your doc about, like, well, how much Benadryl in what time span for the weight of the dog. But Benadryl isn't going to have a sort of like a long lasting negative effect on your dog. Like ibuprofen is toxic to dogs. And so, that isn't something that you should be giving unless you have some backup in what quantity, and it should only be like an extreme situation. Benadryl isn't going to like fight the toxin. It's not going to fight the dog's reaction to the toxin. It is a mild sedative. And so it will help calm the dog. And again, ideally it's going to like reduce that heart rate, and it's going to help fight the toxin from the fact that it's not allowing it to course through the body at a super fast rate. Stopping the bleeding is huge. Even if the animal's in a lot of pain, you got to stop the bleeding. Venom has an anticoagulant, and so stopping the bleeding can be hard. It certainly was in our case. But if you don't stop the blood flow, like you could have a dead dog, not strictly because of the reaction to the toxin. It's the fact that they ran out of blood, right? So
I didn't realize that a wound from a snake bite would be prone to bleeding, like to that level where it could be, that serious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all location, like lower extremity bites to feet, lower parts of the legs. Everybody I talk to is like generally not a big deal. Snort got bit right on the leading edge of her ear, highly vascular area. Any dog owner knows that like ears just bleed like crazy anyway. And then you throw in what was likely a severe reaction to the anticoagulant in the rattlesnake venom,
Mm-hmm.
and it just was an incredible amount of blood. It took me a week to clean the blood out of the Can-Am, and it was a wild deal. But yeah, so if you can, you're going to want to dress the wound to address any bleeding, and you want to keep that below the animal's heart, and you want to get that animal resting and relaxed as well as you can. And having some Benadryl with you is going to be a beneficial thing and not a negative thing. So even for you, right? Like, you're going to feel like you're helping.
Right. Man, and she's doing good now, though?
Yes. Yep. She our shoot in North Dakota, which we're filming for a new series involving waterfowl for MeatEater's. That'll be out on our YouTube channel, so you can look forward to that. She went into heat the first day of filming.
Oh,
and
super convenient.
Yeah, it's nothing I've ever dealt with before, and she was still interested in hunting, was not interested in listening to me tell her what to do. So just like for instance, like, everything went great, but just for instance, right, I'd tell her to heel, and she'd heel, like, not against my leg like she's been doing forever, but she'd heel like 4 feet away. And she's like, this is just as close as I'm going to get right now.
Wild, man. That's interesting. It's like listening but not listening. I don't know. But I'm glad.
Right.
Mostly, number one, super scary on the snake bite, and yeah, just glad that she's doing good now, and yeah, God, that is crazy, man. Again, the stuff that you just don't like. I guess it can happen. You just don't really expect it to happen.
Oh yeah, and I went back into that country about a week later with my friend who had the tag, and we got to the next level of seriousness. Sorry, we got to like the next level of seriousness, and we really hit it hard. We were just burning our eyeballs out on the glassing situation, and covered an incredible amount of ground, and never saw a snake. We probably covered 5 times the amount of country that the dog and I did, and never saw a snake. One fun aside is I've been using those 18s.
Oh, right. Yep.
And I was up on this canyon rim, and I was just kind of curious to see, like, there's little pools of water, not like a flowing river. And I was just kind of curious to see what was down there. And with the 18s from like basically directly overhead, 300 feet below, I was watching brown trout feed below the surface.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. It was really cool.
You literally can't stop hunting for fish. When I ask you about fishing, you're like, well, I hunt for the perch. I have, trying to find those things. And then, fishing. Yeah, I'll go spear fishing, which is hunting for fish. And now you're glassing for fish, Ryan. So, I'm detecting a little bit more hunter than angler drive there, perhaps. But that's cool that you can see that. Yeah, those 18 by 56 Razor UHDs are they're a cool bino. I mean, they're definitely, if you have a need for advertisement mode here, but if you do have a need for like a higher power binocular where you really want to get serious about your tripod glassing, that's a tough one to beat. I like those a lot as well. So
they're with me all the time now. Like they don't. And this is the question I get all the time, and I'm not sure if you do. I'm sure you do. Is like, do they replace a spotting scope? And I run like the biggest spotting scope, and they don't. I'm like, when it's time for that to come out, like it's an extra level of detail that I'm looking for,
right?
And but it has reduced the amount of time that I've spent behind the spotting scope.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm covering ground. My eyes are relaxed. And I'm plenty close. Like it's just a wonderful addition to the kit.
Super cool, man. That's awesome. So getting into the backcountry, you're talking about getting back there, glassing, looking for critters. You got to stay. Keep the calories going in your body. You're burning a lot of calories. Do you have a go-to bar or snack that's just like always makes it in your pack? I feel like that's something like you could get tired. You get tired. You're like, man, I always pack these. Like, do I need another one of these bars? And you get it down, but you're just like, But is there one that you're just like, man, I really like this one?
So I tend to like pack like the Pro meal bars, which are expensive. But if you like actually look at the nutritional breakdown, like those are worth having in your pack. And then I have like my guilty pleasure thing, which is not worth having in your pack. And that's the sweet and salty, like the classic sweet and salty bar. That if you look at the nutritional value of that, it's like not worth the weight of packing it around. But it's a nice little treat. And then, again, like cold weather stuff, like I bring packets of miso soup with me.
Huh.
And I'll fire up some miso soup, and it's a high sodium deal, but you're losing a lot of salt. So it's a little anti-cramp and just a nice treat type medicinal out there on the mountain.
For sure, man. No, I get that. Those you got to have. It's amazing how like those little comfort things, like how big a deal that can make. That can just it can just change your mindset, your outlook. It feels good in oftentimes an environment when it's difficult to feel good. You're working hard, maybe you're super cold, whatever. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. What about okay? Well, you may have answered this question already, but I was going to ask your favorite. Do you have, other than the 18s, do you have a favorite Vortex optic? I like them all. Guilty. I like them all. But what about you? Is there a standout that you're just really digging right now?
Man, I mean this year those 18x56s, like I have just spent so much time behind them, and they're just like a joy to pull out. I haven't like dialed in like the perfect system as far as like quickly accessible on the pack, but I'm working on it. And that would be it. Those LHT scopes are amazing. They are super durable. I like that 40 millimeter objective. Like it's just a lower profile. And for me, like lower profile is just like something, if you just do the surface area math, it's one less thing that I'm going to smash on something and mess up.
Yeah. No,
right? It doesn't sound like much, but trust me, it all helps.
do the math. No, I mean that, for me personally, like, on the hunt side of the rifle scope lineup, which actually that scope series really crosses over and kind of bridges a little bit of a gap between that long range tactical side of things. But like you said, that you got the 3 to 15 and actually the 4.5 to 22 by 50 as well. It's a little bit bigger, but it's not a lot bigger. But man, just the size, the weight, the optics. Again, I'm in advertisement mode here, but just like stunning clarity. You've got an illuminated center dot on the 3 to 15 if you need it. On the first focal plane, 4.5 to 22 by 50. That reticle illuminates as well a little bit more, but pop up and down locking turrets. If you're going to go through the process of getting your ballistic data to dial elevation, you got plenty of travel with the 30 millimeter tube. I mean, it really is like, I don't know. To me, it's one hunting rifle scope to do it all. It's like, oh, you want to sit in a tree stand with your favorite hunting rifle? Great. Put that on top of it. Oh, you want to use that same rifle and you want to go, extend your effective range if you have to shoot a deer or an elk or get an opportunity that's across a canyon and you're confident making that shot because you've gone through the process of getting accurate ballistic data and you've practiced that shot and you're confident there. It really is, like I said, it's one scope to do it all. So if you're looking for that scope, go to vortexoptics.com or one of your local dealers. There I said that.
There you go.
There I said it. It's out there.
I have to say that I recommend the 3 to 15, hands down, across the board. Because whenever I'm taking someone out hunting, or even just hunting with a friend or whatever, I'm always like looking at the power that their scope's on,
Right.
and then casually reaching over and dialing it down.
Right.
Because I'm like, you are not gonna find what we're like. If the thing pops up in this situation, you're not gonna find it very fast.
Yep.
Like, we're just gonna crank that down. Ideally, we're gonna have all the time in the world, and then you can power it up to whatever you want to do. But if you can't put it in the scope, we're not gonna get to that point.
I agree. I think for your general carry around, depending on the terrain, that 3 to 6 is probably where you want to be, and probably 4 I think is like a nice spot to keep your scope at, until you need to, like you said, dial it up and use that magnification to your advantage. But yeah, that's definitely a good tip there. Okay, Cal. Here's one for you. Gonna peel you back like an onion here. What's something that very few people know about you? It doesn't have to be incriminating. Is there something? Is there a little tidbit, little nugget?
Oh yeah, Cal is a family nickname. Callahan.
Yeah.
Surprisingly few people put that together.
Wait. Okay, hold on a sec. I think I know why people call you Cal, but it's because of Callahan, right? Or no?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So everybody's Cal in the family.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I like it. What's a hot butchering tip for a person? They're breaking down an animal. They're processing it at home. Can be anything. Doesn't matter. Deer, elk, duck, chucker.
Well, I always like to say, like, try one new thing. Like, if you heard about something or had something in a restaurant once, like just try it. It's not going to hurt you. And get yourself a grinder. Like, grinding meat at home is phenomenal. So I told you that my older sister, and she's horribly old lady at this point. She just turned 40 a couple weeks ago, which just means that I'm turning 39 here in a couple of weeks. And she and my nephew, like, I made burgers and pot stickers for them, and I took all of the gizzards and hearts, and that was primarily it. Gizzards, hearts, a couple of little pieces of goose and duck and crane trimmings from the breast, but all goose, duck, heart, crane, hearts, and gizzards, and ground it all up and made burgers out of it, and then pot sticker filling, and they crushed it. They loved it,
dude.
So try something new.
That is new.
Get yourself a grinder.
I wouldn't. That's not one I would have thought of. That's very new, and it was good, huh?
Oh yeah, man. I've been doing this for years, and in like your like serious athlete circles, you'd throw in like a little bit of liver in there too. But if you ever come across like in specialty butcher shops or something, like stuff called iron grind,
yeah,
it's would be similar to this. You know, it's like you're taking chunks of meat that are high protein and a little bit of iron content, and it's supposed to be rejuvenating for your muscles.
There you go. When you're just doing your general grind, like you got a deer and you got your grind pile, do you add beef fat or not, or any sort of like?
You know what I did on that batch with the birds is my mom had dropped off. They got a batch of pork sausage made a few years ago now. That the fat content was just like out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit of meat and a lot of fat. And I take that sausage and we'll like cube it up and throw it while it's still like semi-frozen and throw it into grind mixes. And that works out great. If you get, like getting like that real fatty pork shoulder, works awesome too. And then I'm just kind of like on the lookout for like fatty things to pitch in there with stuff. So,
yeah, no, that makes sense. Sometimes I just like, if I'm planning on doing just like, I guess things that I don't need it to stick together in any way, then I just leave it as is, as kind of the lean meat that it is, and throw it in a chili or spaghetti or whatever. And
exactly, yeah.
So that's,
and you can throw an egg in there and like a little bit of breadcrumb, or butcher's trick from Brian Merkel, buddy of mine out there in Duluth. He is a fantastic sausage maker, and he'll add in potato starch as a binder, and that's a great hot tip.
I've never heard of that before. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. What about everybody loves the ongoing cartridge debate? What's Cal's go-to hunting cartridge these days?
Oh man, I've been shooting that Weatherby 6.5 RPM. And it's pretty wild. It's pretty darn cool. Super low recoil. When do the occasional, like Vortex challenge or something like that type match, you feel like you can shoot as long and far as people want, and it's just a pleasurable round to shoot, and it is quite devastating on game. Like, it's a high confidence, low recoil package. And I've been impressed with that one. I really did like a lot of the results that I got with the 280 Ackley improved. I thought that was a real cool cartridge. And although I just heard that 300 Win Mag copper is selling for $275 a box in California, so I'm just gonna like hang on to the 300 Win ammo I have.
Yeah,
I still love that cartridge.
It's a great cartridge. I mean, I'm gonna give the nod to the 300 WSM, but the 300 Win Mag, it is undeniably a very popular, very effective, awesome cartridge. So,
you drop one of those things in somebody's hand, and it's like, oh yes, I understand how this would work.
It just kind of answers a lot of the questions for you, up front.
It does.
Okay, Cal, you've got one species to hunt for the rest of your life. And it could be, we're going to go everything again here. Big game, small game, turkeys, deer, elk, upland birds, waterfowl. You get one thing to hunt. We'll lump waterfowl, all the ducks, all the geese. You get one thing to hunt. What are you picking?
Does the dog get to live as long as I do?
Yes.
Okay, then it's going to be birds right now. Like, I'm just like anybody with a new dog. It's like, it's so addicting,
You realize they don't have horns, right?
I do. Okay. It's just like, man, it's the level of enjoyment is, like, for the effort is just incredible, right? Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, like birds would just be great. Lots of, like, specifically like upland is, I just get a lot more exercise and cover a lot of ground, and have somebody to talk to that isn't outwardly judgmental. So
they might. Yeah, I mean, they might sit 3 feet away when you tell them to, to come by you there. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
What? Okay, we made Giannis do this, so we're gonna make you do it. Give us your best Ranella impression.
A lot of people don't know this, but my old man, he was in World War II. A whiskey dose. That's about it.
I like it. We're ripping through them now. Everybody loves gear. Is there an underrated piece of gear? And this isn't the overrated, underrated portion that we're going to get to here very shortly. An underrated piece of gear that's a difference maker for you in the field. Like something you're like, man, I use this thing all the time, but a lot of people, they don't use this thing.
One thing that's just like a great tool to have around are those solar lanterns. Been using those for years. And now they have one for a couple years now that can charge. So you can like charge rechargeable headlamp or a phone or something, small like that. That's a fantastic tool. I like the Aquamira drops for water purification in most mountain areas where you're drinking pretty clear water.
Mm-hmm.
And man, a good camp cup and spoon combo is just so hard to beat. The assurance of like a Leatherman tool, so hard to beat. They've gone through a lot of iterations, but a freaking phenomenal shooting tool is that Spartan bipod, like very lightweight. Don't know what's there, but provides a great shooting platform in the field. And it's tiny and lightweight and justifiable on those big hunts. And I've taken every big game animal in the last probably 5 years with one, and they're just fantastic. And I just basically like live in the closed category until they fall off. Like, I'm pretty darn happy. I'm not like looking for something else. We got a bunch of cool First Light stuff coming out that's going to turn some heads. We'll start seeing that pretty quick.
Okay.
But like, I'm pretty hard to impress, I'm like, do we really need that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty set with what we got. So
everything that you mentioned there, actually, so I've been looking at those Spartan bipods. I don't have one yet, but they look super, super sweet. And I haven't used the drops that you're talking about, the Aquamira drops. So I'll probably be looking into a handful of those things myself. So, and like you said, the Leatherman, there's a lot of backups built into the Leatherman. Like, it's good to have with you.
There are, and I'll be the first. Like, I will on those long hunts, and I'll make a point at trying to get real gear savvy and shave a bunch of weight. I will. It's hard for me to do, but I will take the old folding pocket knife and leave it in the console of the truck.
Okay. Yep.
When I'm packing the Leatherman around on the big long stuff. So.
Yep. Okay. We'll get a little bit serious here. What do you think? What do you think the most important thing hunters can do to grow the sport and bring new folks into the fold is? Right now, what can people be doing?
I think just kind of knowing what you're talking about and having the self-awareness to know that everybody has the potential to be. Everybody you run into has the potential to be an incredible ally. And even though you are not representative of every hunter, people look at you as the representative of every hunter in those little interactions on the trail or in the parking lot or, in the store when you got to run in there and in all your camo to grab something that you forgot, right? So, be somewhat prepared to say like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm really looking forward to it, and this is why I appreciate it. Nice, succinct, how you doing? Have a good morning type of way. I think goes a really, really long way.
Yep.
Like, be prepared to leave a good impression.
For sure. So what we've that was question 19, by the way. So we're at question 20, which is the long awaited, overrated, underrated, or accurately rated portion of this conversation. Cal, are you ready?
Oh, I'm pumped.
Okay. Number 1, the movie Jeremiah Johnson. Overrated, underrated, accurately rated.
Underrated.
I'd agree
Like,
with that.
I know it gets a lot of hype amongst our circle, but there's plenty of folks, especially right now, that have never seen it. It's a phenomenal movie.
If you haven't seen it, check it out. It is a true classic. I do that one holds a special place in my heart for sure. So, speaking with or in the same line, cinema. This is probably a little bit more pop culture-ish. The series Squid Game. Have you seen it, Ryan?
Okay, so yeah, I've seen several episodes.
Okay, we're not asking for a spoiler alert. Just a general feeling as far as you've gotten.
Well, I'll add to that pop culture and tell you that I watched a Saturday Night Live skit where they cover Squid Game.
Okay.
And it's like a country song written about Squid Game. It's fantastic. It gives you the whole overview of the series in a very palatable, country type of tune. It's great.
Okay, so if you want the Cliff Notes version in a country tune, you can turn to that then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, I do a ton of research for a living. I guess I got a lot of excuses, I guess, if you want to just boil it down to that. But when it's time for me to just turn on the TV, I want like some happy-go-lucky entertainment. There needs to be, like, if it's going to be violence for the sake of it, of entertainment, I almost want it to be like schlock horror film. This is so absurd, versus something like real serious. Like, if you want, like, my pop culture number one thing, and I was down on him for a little bit of season 2, is Ted Lasso. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. I'm going to write that down.
It is just a, like, it's so cute and kind of heartwarming and positive that you kind of feel like a little guilty watching it, but then it, like, comes back with some adult humor, and it's just, like, well balanced and overall a positive show. It's a good one.
Positivity. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, nobody asked me, so I'll ask me. Squid Game, I think it's overrated. There, I said it. Comment below. It's out there. I just,
oh my God, I totally forgot the premise of what we were doing.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I know I wasn't really aware of the hype of that one. I had some buddies talk about it. I do think it's overrated, Mark. The premise is older than TV.
Correct.
Like, the story's been written in various ways a bajillion different times. And there's some little bits in there that I thought were, like, unique for sure, but yeah, you're not overrated for sure.
And I'm not saying
I'm gonna be tighter now. Overrated.
Well, I thought that was just an accurately rated. Like, I thought you were just kind of giving it like an accurately rated there. So,
no.
What about something close to our hearts here? Back straps.
Oh, that's a good one. I think I can go accurately rated.
That's a safe play. That's what I do too, because
it's hard. I mean, it's hard.
There's so many.
I get what you're going with. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Marriage.
Boy, wrong guy to talk to. There's some great examples out there, Mark. And if you're in one of those scenarios, I hope it continues to be wonderful.
Yeah, looks good on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Back to the cartridge thing. 6.5 Creedmoor, overrated, underrated, accurately rated.
That is hard, and I can't just you can't give an answer on this that isn't worthy of a follow up. I'm gonna say accurately rated, and I probably don't live in the cartridge world, and this is an assumption as much as you do, Mark. But as much as I want to dive in, there's a lot of benefits to that cartridge. Yeah, go ahead. What do you think?
So here's where I would preface this. I'd preface my my evaluation with I love the 6.5 Creedmoor. I have 3 6.5 Creedmoors. I think it's a great cartridge. We did a podcast, Cal. It was called "What is America's Cartridge?" and we debated it amongst ourselves. We stated our case. And I was actually saying that the 6.5 Creedmoor was going to be America's cartridge. So, however, with all that said, I think it's overrated. I think people think it's magic, and it's at the end of the day, it is a cartridge. So there you go.
Yeah,
or some people, I should say, not everybody.
Yeah, I mean that's I can agree to that as easily as I can agree with it's accurately rated, right? I think it is it's a comfortable cartridge that, when matched with the appropriate projectile, delivers fantastic results. I do not, just like anything, right? It's meant for something, and it's not supposed to be abused.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. All right, last one. This is it. This is everybody. This is the big one. Big bucks. Overrated, accurately rated, underrated. Where you at with that one?
Overrated. I mean, my gosh, you people. Just stay home and watch some football, for gosh sakes. I'll still be out there, but you need to go home.
I'm going to go with, as much as I should say, maybe overrated, I'm going to have to go with accurately rated, because I'm not going to hold out. My entire hunt doesn't revolve around getting a big one, but I sure think they're cool. So there I go.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it's forces your feet forward through the snow and up the mountain more than just the idea of anything.
Yeah. And what else are you going to think about the rest of the year,
Even when you have an anything mindset, you're still thinking, but maybe.
Right. It could happen. So awesome, Cal. Well, thank you so much for the time and letting me pester you with these questions. Hopefully, I know I always find you a very interesting, fascinating individual, and hopefully the listeners here have a little bit more of a window into that, which is the Ryan Callahan. You guys are doing amazing things over there at MeatEater. Really enjoying all the content that you guys are kicking out. Sounds like you have some new waterfowl content that you're kicking out. So everybody keep your eyes peeled for that. I know I will. And then outside of that, Cal, any parting words before we sign off here?
Thank you guys so much for having me on. And my main goal for the rest of the season is to just spend more days out there. And I'm not necessarily just after that big buck, but I'll be thinking maybe. And I'm going to spend a lot with the dog, and it's going to be fantastic. So
I like it. Make the T-shirt, maybe. But awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks again. We're going to let you get back to it, get back to your life here. And, take care. It's always a pleasure. And thanks for everything from you guys. And take care. We'll talk soon.
Thanks a bunch, Mark.
All right, man. Take care. Bye.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.